Let's flex them up nice. Yeah, let's see if we can string it. We have a sharp metal. You might think that's flimsy because it's made out of a tin can, but let me tell you what, that will split you wide open when it hits you with it. Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to try to make a bow, like a survival bow. I started making bows like this when I was about 10 or 11. Nobody taught me. I just decided I wanted a bow, so I made a bow. Took a handsaw, a knife, and just made myself a bow and arrows. First thing on a bow is you don't want something that, like the piece of wood, you don't want it to be like old and stunted or like half dead, or definitely not dead, because it'll split. So you want it nice and green. It's about the right length. Take some of those dead ones off there. You're going to be very careful taking the branches off. Luckily, this one doesn't have much for branches, and they're not on the bent side at all. So that's really good, because if you cut those off too deep, then your bow just might split when you go to bend it. Pretty good strength. Any kind of cuts on this side and your bow might split. You're going to want to remove material from this back side, if you remove any at all. We'll see how the flex is here. Definitely a lot stiffer on this side. Witch hazel is very, very stiff wood. I've never actually made a bow. I've never made anything with witch hazel before, actually. And you just want to test it by putting your hand where your handle's going to be and just kind of seeing the flex on each side. And it feels about the same, really. It's flexing a lot in the middle, and I want it to flex a little more on the end. Okay. Oh yeah. Feels good. I mean, I'd like it to flex more in here, but I don't have the time. And in a survival situation, you don't really have a tremendous amount of time. I mean, if you're gonna carve a bow at home or whatever, that's much different than when you're in an emergency, you know. You don't want to spend a ton of energy and time making your bow perfect. You don't want the notch on this front side, because that'll make it split. So you're going to want to kind of notch it a little bit of an angle like this towards the other side. You can use a knife for this as well, but it takes longer. If you have a good saw, just use that. On one side, it's going to want to look like that. Just something to catch your rope in. Yep. Like that. Doesn't gotta be perfect. It's not a show bow. It's just made for catching a deer or a coyote or a wild boar. And there is wild boar in this area. I've seen their sign here. Later in the video, if we see one, we're definitely gonna take a shot at it. So, I got our boot laces here. 2 of them, because 1 is not long enough. You're gonna want to tie them to each other. You don't need any fancy special knots or anything like that. Make sure they're nice and tight, like that. And then on one end, I'm going to loop this back over itself. That thing is probably about a little bigger than my finger, so you're just going to want to loop this around, pull it through, get yourself a loop about like that. That's probably a little bit too big, really. I might have to adjust that. that loop's a little big, but I think it's gonna work. So on your other side, I'm gonna pull this nice and tight, stretch it pretty much as hard as you can, and then pick a spot right there, and that's where we're gonna make our other loop. A little bit lower than that, actually. We're gonna make our other loop a little bit lower so we can bend this bow a little bit before we loop it. So a lot of people use the technique stepping through, pulling it like that. This bow is too strong for that, so we're going to use the other technique. Wedge that in the rocks, step on this. Some of this, I'm going to take some of this off a little bit here to make that easier to go anyway. And we're going to retie that. There we go. Looks better. Couple little knots in it. Let's see if we can string it. All right. Now we're talking. Now we're gonna make an arrow. We got ourselves a bow. So I searched all around, couldn't really find anything straight very easy, but I found a piece of dogwood, pretty straight. Seems a little more flexible than I would like, but it's about the right diameter, and it's got one little crook in it right there, but it doesn't have to be super straight. Really all it has to do is land an impact on your prey. I want to take all these branches off right in there. You're going to want a pretty flat tip. I'm going to carve this as flat as you can, so just up from where your notch is, you want a nice smooth flat section for the feathers that I'm going to show you how to make. And then it'll split easier this way straight through here than it will this way through these knots. And it's just the way it's built because of the knots. So you want to make your notch up and down parallel with the knots like that. So using your saw and being extremely careful of your hand. You do not want to cut yourself out here in these woods. You want to make that notch about the same size as your string, maybe a ½ inch deep or so. That looks about right. Maybe not a ½ inch, 3/8 or 1/4 inch. And then on this side, carve out a field point. I see that this is hollow, so that makes your field point a little harder to do. And that hollow can make it explode on impact. This is a thick arrow, probably ½ inch at least, 5/8. So you want to make this tip pretty smooth. You make the tip pretty smooth. And you know, you can find these out in the woods. Unfortunately, people dump them off everywhere. It seems pretty pathetic, but whatever. So you're going to want to take this, and you're going to want to kind of scribe yourself out an arrow tip like that. And then just take your knife and plunge it right through there. That got tore up a little more than I would have hoped, but now you're gonna want to straighten this. We got a tip and these edges. I mean, you know how sharp a can is. And I got a file, so I'm gonna file that too. But you know, that hitting you at, I don't know, way over 100 miles an hour when this is sunk into the arrow, well, you know, hitting an animal, that'll shred it wide open, you know, give you a spot for the blood. So I'm gonna sink that wood all the way into here. So we're gonna have wood, and then with the blades coming out the sides. So take your knife, you gotta find right where it's hollow. And try to split that. Right, ooh, that was a little deep. Hopefully that still works. I went a little deep, but sink your tip in there all the way down to about right there. So now that I know how deep this is going to be, right about there, now that I know how deep that's going to be, I'm going to mark it right here. Just want ourselves a little notch for that wire. That wire is going to sit right here, and it's going to stop this tip from sliding back on impact. So you're going to take your wire and you're going to bend it as tight as you possibly can all the way around there, and then start to twist it. Brought a Leatherman. Everyone should have one of those in their car or in their backpack. I'm going to cut off this extra. I'll save that piece of wire for later. I'll show you why. You want your tip nice and positioned. And then you want to twist this. Not too hard. Baling wire can snap pretty easy. And then push it flat down as best you can, right into the wood. So now we have a tip that will not slide back when it impacts. But this tip up here is too sprawled out. So we need to make another one of those things. We need to make another one with the wire. So we'll do that right now. You probably guys can't see that, but take your knife, cut little holes, and bore them out where they're big enough. Put the wire through. Push it a ways through, really. Bend it into a pretty sharp 90-degree turn. Now we're talking. Okay, so we got the wire through. Bend it sharp onto itself. Twist it. Pretty strong. Okay. Twist that down. Smash it flat to the wood the best you can. And now look at what we have. We have a sharp metal. You might think that's flimsy because it's made out of a tin can, but let me tell you what, that will split you wide open. The weight of this arrow. This arrow is probably close to a pound. So when I launch it with that bow that's at least 80 pounds of force, it will absolutely shred. Imagine that hitting you in the lungs, you know, or a deer. That as long as it doesn't hit bone, yeah, it's going to bend around the bone, but that is going to leave a big enough wound to let the blood out. When this sinks in yay deep, without that, there's nowhere for the blood to come out, and your animal's going to run way off without dying for a long time. With this, now you just kind of made yourself a razor point, in a sense. And look at it. It won't focus. Look at that. Serrated. I haven't done this in forever. But that wire, see how it closed it? Closed it up rock tight. You can't move that at all. Now we got a file. Let's take some of those dull, some of that dull edge off. Okay, we got our tip. Now we're going to work on feathers. I think a piece about maybe 6 inches, a little less than 6 inches, probably 5.5 inches. Let's see if I can do this. So, take one corner, you bend it down to where you have a strip about like that. And you'll see why that is that way later. See a strip of the glue showing about that big, and this is about maybe 3/4. Take your knife, cut about 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch that strip, and then just, oh, this lock is too soft. Taper that. Taper that up. So now you got a little tab at the end. Same thing in the back. So make probably about 1/4 inch. Take that off. Feather looks like that. Now we'll install it. So we got our notch here. You don't want, you know, your feathers to be in the wrong position. So you're going to want to line them up slightly with your notch, as straight as you can on that stick. And then a nice smooth edge for that to glue to is always nice. Just bend that until it has its kind of natural shape. And we're going to make 2 more, and then we'll tape them. Got another one done. And you are going to want to install them as evenly as possible, because you're going to tape this edge. So you want that about right there. Make sure to seal that on really well. If you got a lighter, you can even heat that with a lighter and get that to stick even better. Now if you notice, I got a very slight spiral. You probably don't even see it, but yeah, see right there, you can see it's got a very slight spiral. That'll help your arrow spin as it travels. So applying the third one is probably the easiest. You just line it up, put it right on there like that. Because this side is pretty flat. I mean, these move around some because they're a little out of position because they're floppy, but I'll put that right on there. Push it down as good as you possibly can. Get that glue really stuck. Now we got feathers. I mean, that one's really needs to be bent in position, but all you're really trying to do is create some drag on the back. Now take your tape, set it right on there, flatten it out really well, pull it nice and tight, and get all three of those. Double wrapped, triple wrapped. That anchors the front of your feathers. And then we need a strip for the back. Now we got a strip, maybe almost 1 inch probably. Line it up right at the back. Get all the air out. Pull it nice and tight. Does not have to be perfect. So all it has to do is stay together as it flies through the air. So, yeah, there we go. I mean, I'm less than an hour into this build, and I have a bow and an arrow with a tip like that I'm ready to use. He's kind of made them thick. You want something with some weight, some strength, to where when that impacts, it's got so much weight that it sinks deep. I mean, that's razor sharp. It feels like I'm being poked by a knife. Definitely do the trick. I'm gonna launch this arrow and show you guys what it looks like, how it flies. I don't know how it's gonna fly yet. Camera is not gonna focus on that tip probably. Oh, there it goes. So you can see how brutal and jagged that is. You know, imagine being hit by that with about 100 pounds, 100-pound bow force, and that'll absolutely shred you. So let's fire it. So after I shot it, let's see if it'll focus. It actually held up pretty well. I mean, it hit pretty hard dirt there in the road. If you guys like these kind of videos, please like and subscribe. Comment down below. Tell me what you guys want to see when it comes to survival videos. And yeah, until next time, thank you very much.